Hey everyone, Charlie here. Welcome back to another thrilling episode of Talking Time with Charlie, a show where I just basically ramble about something. It could be music, it could be something else, but this is Talking Time according to a concert pianist. So enough with the introduction. Let's start by smashing the like button. You gotta go down there and you gotta click the thumbs up thing and you gotta click the subscribe thing. It's all free, don't worry. And you gotta comment and you gotta share because that helps the algorithm and that helps me out a lot when I'm trying to make all these videos and put them out there and to help the algorithm get the videos out to as many of my subscribers and other people as possible. So thanks so much for your support. With that said, let's move on. I am sitting today at my piano and it desperately needs a tune, but it is going to be tuned soon, so don't worry about it. That's going to be taken care of. What we're going to talk about today, though, is a question that was sent in, and the question is about memorization. How do you memorize? And to talk a little bit about memorization in piano playing, like hesitation, brain farts, things like that. So let's talk about that a little bit. So a lot of times, I think a lot of people who are people who are both in music, who are playing the piano or another instrument or trying to learn a piece or whatever, and people who don't really play music but enjoy it and listen to it. A lot of times they have questions about like how do you memorize a piece, because sometimes a piece is something very, very simple. You can play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or something, or it could be something really, really complicated. There's some pieces with a bajillion notes, and some of the pieces are really long, as in 30-40 minutes long, with multiple movements, and it can be a lot of notes. So how do you memorize it? I'm going to clarify something right off the bat. First of all, as a disclaimer, my way might be very different than a lot of other musicians' ways. Everyone might have their own slightly different way of approaching things, but I'm going to talk about my experience and how I usually do it. So the first thing I want to say is that I want to dispel any notions. I'm using fancy words today. I want to dispel any notions that you're actually memorizing actual notes. When you're playing a piece, when I'm playing a piece, I'm not thinking, I'm not thinking about the individual, that's a B, A, G sharp, A, C. I'm not thinking the actual notes through. That's not how it works at all. In fact, maybe I'll get into this a little bit later, but when you do start thinking that, if you're in the middle of a concert and you start thinking about physically where your fingers are moving, if you start physically thinking about, it has to, I have to hit an F sharp or a G or whatever, it's almost as if you're walking and you start thinking about the physical movements of walking. You're like, my ankle is bending and then my toes are going like this and then my legs are, and then suddenly you can't walk, right? Like when you start thinking about it. It's very similar to the piano. You are not thinking, for me at least, about the individual notes that you're playing. Instead, the vast majority for me of memorization of music is basically muscle memory. It's basically muscle memory. So let me explain that a little bit. So when I'm playing a piece, I'm not thinking of the exact notes that I'm playing. I'm not thinking about how my fingers are moving. At least not eventually. That's the goal, to not have to think about any of that. It just becomes intuitive. You don't have to focus on the actual physical motions of playing the piano. When you're first starting off learning a piece, for me, a lot of you will know I am a lousy sight reader. I can't sight read worth a darn. Some people, you could stick down like a piece of music they've never seen before, and they'll just like instantly play it or whatever, and it just blows my mind. I have no clue how they do that. For me, I'm like over there counting ledger lines on the piano and all that kind of a thing. I am a terrible sight reader. I can kind of sight read a little bit if it's super simple, like like some classical stuff, maybe. But anything more than basic stuff like that, I'm like, I'm learning little by little. So at the beginning, obviously, especially for people like me, I'm sure, you're going to have to learn the notes. You are thinking about the notes. You have to play the notes before you can really do anything more than, you have to know the notes. That's kind of the basics, right? So at the beginning, I'm thinking of the notes. But over time, once I can get to the point where I can start playing it close to up to speed with the music, right? At that point, the memorization comes very, very fast for me. I think there's other people who are the opposite way. Some people you can set down a piece of music for them, they'll read it, play it up to speed right away, but then they can't memorize it. It's very, very difficult. For me, it's the other way around. You set down a piece of music and I look like a deer blinded by headlights. But once I can get to that point where I can play it up to speed with the music, then normally it's pretty much memorized. Maybe there's people who can memorize fast and have the music set in front of them and they can play it immediately. Good for them. This is not me. So that's how I kind of go about that. So I start by learning the notes. Slow and tedious process. I'm counting ledger lines. C, D, E, O sharp. And then eventually when I get to the point where I can play it up to speed, then I'm kind of at the point where it's memorized. Now, there's a caveat. Some pieces have little twists and turns that can take you back to the beginning, can move you to the next section, things like that. For people who don't know music or know much about music, you can think of them as like little exits or something, like little exits on a freeway. You're driving down a freeway and there's an exit. And if you take the wrong exit, you might loop all the way back to where you were 10 miles ago, and then you have to retrace your steps. Or there might be an exit that makes you skip the entire city that you were trying to get to or had to go through, right? I don't know if that's a good analogy. Maybe it is. So, for example, let's say you took a wrong exit. It could loop you all the way back to where you were. So you're leaving home, you're going somewhere, you took the wrong exit, you have to go all the way back and then come back around. That could be one kind of a mistake, right? Another one would be, I don't know why I put mistake in quotes. That's a mistake. Another one would be, if you took a detour, you get on the wrong freeway, take an exit, and you're trying to get to this one city to do an errand and then go into the next city, but you completely bypass that city altogether. So you just skip a whole section of the piece, right? So a lot of classical music, like Mozart type stuff, Haydn, things like that, they're kind of very notorious for that because a lot of the piece is very repetitive, right? Like there's an A section in a sonata, then a B section, and it might come back to the A section. And it's very possible you just skip the B section altogether, or you go from the A section straight to the end, if you just make a few wrong turns or one wrong turn. So anyway, for those types of things, it's really important to, for me at least, to kind of keep, not space out too much, right? You want to kind of know where you are in the grand scheme of things, because if you're playing and you're spaced out, you could very well forget whether you're at the first time this happens, or the second time it happens, or the third time it happens. You might even forget if you played the middle section or not, right? Or the second section or something like that. So you might be playing, let's say the piece starts with, and then there's a middle section. I'm just going to make something up, but let's say the middle section was like, and then it comes back to, this is not how it goes actually, but, and then there's a fourth section that's like, and then ends with this again. Well, if you're spacing out and you're playing the main theme, you might forget if you did the second section or the third section. And then you might just not know, and that happens to me sometimes too. But so it's important to especially in pieces like that where it can be very repetitive, to kind of know in your mind where you've been, so you know where you're supposed to go. So you don't loop around and do a section that you've already played and aren't supposed to play again, or so that you don't, so you don't skip a section entirely altogether. So. But aside from those turns and detours and exits and stuff, or whatever you want to call them, the notes themselves, you generally, for me at least, it's muscle memory. So eventually, the goal is to get a piece of music to the point where you don't really have to think about the notes you're playing, which is great, because then what you can focus on is you can focus on being a director, an interpreter, a conductor of yourself, especially on a piano where, one of the greatest things about the piano is that it's like a full orchestra. There's no other instrument at all. Maybe organ, I don't know, but it's still different. There's no other instrument that you can play, you can imitate an entire 100-person orchestra all by yourself and have it sound pretty good, right? Not to poo-poo on string players, but they're playing one note at a time, maybe two. And if they're playing two, it's usually parallel or something, right? On a piano, you could be playing many, many melodies at once, all while having a bass and harmony and a whole ton of stuff all at the same time. You can imitate an entire orchestra. So, there's a lot going on. So when you're at the point where you don't have to think about the individual notes that you're playing, you can then kind of take a step back and really kind of be a conductor. Pretend you're out in the audience listening to yourself play, and you can say, oh, I need a little bit more of the melody, or a little bit more bass, or a little bit less of the middle, or the balance is a little off, or I want to take more time here, or really give it more here. And of course, you should be doing that even when, even if it's not like super, super comfortable yet, right? I'm not saying learn the notes and completely ignore the musicality and then add the musicality. Now, you kind of want to do it hand in hand as best you can. But when you can kind of eliminate the technical parts of playing the piano, then you can really, really focus on the musicality, which is what takes something from just playing the piano to making like music and hopefully saying something with your music. Anyway, I've been rambling way too long. Do me a favor, smash the like button below. It's the one with the thumbs up sign, I think. Make it turn blue. Subscribe. If you're seeing this on something other than YouTube, go to youtube.com/Charlie Albright Pianist and subscribe there. It's free. It helps me out. Comment, share, because a lot of times when I make these videos, the algorithms might not push it out for one of a bajillion reasons. But liking, sharing, and commenting and all that stuff, that helps the algorithm say, oh, this is a cool video, and we're going to push it out to more people. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you all next time. Stay safe and healthy, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.